Do you want to talk about your mental health? Well, you've come to the right place. I'm your host. You can call me Horse. Why the long face?
Hello, and you're very welcome back. My name is Horse, and this is yet another episode of Why the Long Face. I'm aware that I missed a week. I do apologise. Last week I was sick, I had a very scratchy throat, and I was basically going every 2 sentences. So that would not have made a very good podcast. Or at the very least, it would have broken myself and James's heart when we tried to edit said podcast, because we would have had to edit out 100 moments. So I just decided, for my own mental health and for James's mental health and for the sake of our friendship, that I would take the week off. In other horse related news, I've got a new job. Again, for those of you who don't know or didn't care enough to know, I've been working as an electrician for the last few months. Not a very good one. I was very grateful that my uncle kind of gave me a job to help me out. But look, I'm man enough to admit it's just not for me. I'm just not built for hard labour. I have soft hands. But I gave it a go. I learned some things. I can now wire a plug and wire a socket and things. So that's something I couldn't do this time 5-6 months ago. But I got a job in sales, because sales is what I'm good at. I'm good at talking, in case you hadn't noticed. So I start that next week. I'm very excited. It's just going to be another chapter, another learning curve. But that's what life is all about. It's about taking risks, taking chances, trying new things, or going back to old things that you know you're better at. So the 2 things I've just mentioned, the fact that I was sick last week and the fact that I have a new job. There's been a particular feeling that I've been feeling in relation to those 2 things, and it's a feeling that a lot of us get in relation to a lot of things. That's not very specific at all. I shall be more specific. Anger. So last week when I was sick, straight away I was angry that I couldn't record the podcast. And like I mentioned, I wasn't the best at being an electrician. Like, I would attempt to do things and they would just go wrong because, well, for one thing, I've never done it before, and 2, I've never really used tools and stuff like that. So of course I wasn't going to be the best, but I would use that as a way of being very angry at myself. I think anger comes hand in hand with depression, and it's not necessarily one of the emotions that's discussed the most in relation to depression. Normally when you think about someone who's depressed, or you think about your own depression, it's the sadness, it's the loneliness. And I don't know about ye, but for me especially, anger has always been up there with the sadness, if not surpassing the sadness sometimes in relation to my mental health. Anyone who knows me or anyone who meets me, angry is not a word that they would use to describe me. I don't come across as an angry person. I come across as calm. I come across as collected. I come across as, most of the time, kind of come across happy, but never angry. Never someone who you think would have a temper. But I do. Not necessarily. So if we take this as I'm slowly kind of going down with my mental health, things are getting on top of me. Yes, for the first few days or the first few weeks, it is that sadness. The whole, oh God, it's this again. Why am I here? Why is this? Okay, I'm just not going to fight this. I'm just going to ride it out like I always do. Go low, keep the head down. It's what we do. After that, that's when the anger sets in. That's when the voice, that little voice in the back of my head, he changes. And he's vicious, and he's bitter towards me, towards others, towards whatever situation it is that I'm in. And I won't lie, it has led to me losing my temper in the past. I've lost my temper with people who did not deserve to have that thrown at them, or deserve to have that facing them. That's something that I have to live with. That's just, I've lost friendships, I've lost relationships because of my temper. And I'm not saying that it's an excuse, it is not. And in any of those situations, I have held my hand up, I have accepted my responsibility. But that's where it can get to. It can get to a point where if you're not dealing with it, if you're not making the conscious effort to be aware of the thoughts and the emotions that are flying around in your head, then it will get to that point where you will take it out on someone, because that other person might have the best intentions in the world and you might just be having the worst day that you've had. And they might just say one thing that just triggers you, and then boom, that's it. You're off the handle, you're seeing red, smoke out the ears, the whole lot. And it's strange because for years and years I was so angry. Like I spoke about in the last podcast, I had a bit of trouble with bullies in my early teens, and it was something that the idea was kind of floated to me that why don't you just fight back? Why don't you push him back? And I had so much anger and so much rage inside me, but yet I wouldn't take it out on those people. For fear, I suppose, I don't know, but I just went around with this anger for years. My parents bought me a boxing bag. Like I've mentioned before, I'm not a sporty person. When I was a teenager especially, I was quite small, I was quite skinny and scrawny. So even if I punched the punch bag with what I felt like was all the anger and all my power, the boxing bag would barely move. It barely felt like I was doing anything to it. And that would annoy me more. Now, I'm gonna tell you this bit. I promise I'm not actually in any way certified insane, or like I don't have fucking weird tendencies or anything like that. But I stabbed the shit out of this boxing bag to the point where I then had to wrap it in duct tape because I didn't want my parents to know that I had stabbed the shit out of it, because as a parent they probably would have freaked out and thought that I was gone a bit crazy. That, by the way, is not an effective way of dealing with your anger. Do not stab a boxing bag, do not stab anything, or do not stab anyone for that matter. That's just, you would think it's common knowledge, but I'm just gonna say it anyway because I care about you and I want to make sure that everyone around you is safe. But moving on from that, I knew that punching the boxing bag wasn't working for me because I felt like, in my head, I felt like I had to do damage, or so when I hit the boxing bag and it wouldn't move, it was like, okay, that's not all my anger then. I'm not hitting this hard enough. I'm not getting all of the anger out of me. So I gravitated to hitting things that were softer than a boxing bag. So it started with my pillow. I would punch the shit out of my bed. But then I wasn't getting that release because I was punching something soft. So that didn't help with the anger either because I wasn't getting anything back. And then one day, I got so down and so angry that I punched a wall. And obviously not a good idea. I will not encourage anyone to punch a wall. It really, really hurt my knuckle. Probably because I didn't punch it correctly, but that's not the point. And I'd love to be able to sit here and say that I learned and that I never again punched a wall. But I did. I don't know how many times I have punched walls in my life, but I do know that the last time I did it was the worst. This was during lockdown. You know, I'd only seen the same 4 walls and the same 2 faces for months upon months on end. I hadn't seen my girlfriend at the time in literally months. You know, college was a shit show because I was trying to study, but I couldn't study because 1, I was very depressed, and 2, it's very hard to study film and photography online when you're not able to go out and film and photograph. So I had all this going on. I sat in my room listening to music, listening to sad music, because that's what you do when you're sad, is you listen to sad music to make the sadness last longer instead of actually listening to something happy that might cheer you up. And then the thoughts and the kind of mindset kind of took a dive, and next thing I knew I was in a full-blown panic attack, and I was slumped on the floor with my back to say the base of my bed, and I started digging my fist into the floor. Now I had a carpeted floor, and to be honest I'm not entirely sure how many times I hit it, but when I stopped, and apologies for the graphic nature of what I'm about to say, 4 of my knuckles were completely, like the skin had completely torn off them, and I was pumping blood all down my hand, and my hand was obviously shaking, and my knuckles were pounding. And because of the years of punching walls and punching hard things that I knew punching them that they would hurt me, but because I've done it so many times, I've done permanent damage to my knuckles. Whenever it gets cold outside, my knuckles go this horrible red purpley colour, and I don't know why. I assume because there's damage to the tissue. My knuckles crack all the time. If I move my fingers, my knuckles crack. If I put my hand flat, my knuckles don't sit right. So I've obviously done damage somewhere along the lines. Of course, when I punch walls, apart from the last time, even though I didn't punch the wall, I punched the floor, but apart from that time, I didn't tell people. I would just get on with it, and I'd get on with the fact that my hand was sore. Like, I would be in school trying to write, and my hand was cramping, and the knuckles were still pounding because I bit the shit out of my bedroom wall the night before. And it wasn't until I was with a counsellor during that time in college, and we were talking about it, and I showed them my hand, and they were they basically said that that's a form of self-harm. Now, when we think of self-harm, we think of, I don't want to say stereotypical because that sounds awful, but like, you think of the movies and the TV shows. When you think of someone self-harming, you think of someone cutting themselves or something like that. But it's in the name. It's causing yourself any type of harm. Like I said, I would deliberately hit walls and hit things that were hard because I knew that I would feel something. When I punched the boxing bag, I obviously wore gloves, and even if I didn't, they're still relatively soft. I still wouldn't feel anything. When I punched pillows and punched the bed, I felt nothing because it was soft. Whereas when I punched a wall, I felt like that was substantial. That I could feel it. It was rock hard, but I felt like that was a way of me actually getting my emotions out, or at the very least, I would feel something, because at the time I felt so numb that I wasn't feeling anything. Now, I also don't need to tell you, but I will tell you. And I said it already, punching walls is not a good idea. Punching anything other than a boxing bag is not a good idea. Do not punch a wall. Do not punch a person. Punch a bed, fine. That's perfectly okay. And if you want something, that little bit more substantial to punch a boxing bag. Do not punch a wall. But that's also if you feel like your anger has gotten to that level. I want to talk about ways that you can catch the anger or control the anger and get it to a point where you mightn't even have to lash out, because you can just think about it. And I'm not going to say remain calm, because it's when you're in that state, when you're either getting ready to lose your temper, you feel like you're boiling over, or you have already lost your temper. Telling someone to calm down is the most futile thing you can do. It is completely pointless. Even in general, in day-to-day life, if you're stressed in your job, or you've just had a hectic day at home, and someone says, Jesus, relax, calm down. The first thing you want to say, or probably do say, is do not tell me to calm down. Because, for me, when someone says calm down, I feel like it's almost disregarding my feelings towards whatever situation it is. Just because you're not, just because that person, whoever tells you to calm down, just because they're not, foaming at the mouth and steaming at the ears, doesn't mean you're not entitled to. But, again, 9 times out of 10, we should 100% avoid getting to that point with our anger. I do apologise, I went on a bit of a tangent there. I completely lost where I was. I had to pause and listen back to what I just said to remember what it is I'm going to say now. We're going to talk about ways to try and deal with your anger so that you get to a point where you don't necessarily boil over. Plain and simple. Probably no reason for me to have to pause the podcast to go back to listen to what I had just said so that I can remember what I was going to say right now. Anyway, it's come to that point where we break it up a small bit. Step away from all the deep, dark mental health stuff, and I talk about one of the other major loves in my life. It's movie of the week.
I watched the film this week. I ain't gonna talk about it. Movie of the week.
This week, I'm actually keeping on theme for once. It's not a case of I need to try and shoehorn a movie into the theme that I'm talking about. The movie I'm talking about this week is called The Angriest Man in Brooklyn. So it came out in 2014. It was one of the last, if not the very last film that Robin Williams did. I love Robin Williams. I've always loved him. I genuinely have never seen that man do a bad movie. This one is very simple. So he's a very angry man and he lives in Brooklyn. He goes to the doctor, finds out that he's unwell. He's pushing and pushing and pushing on the doctor. The doctor is also having a bad day. The doctor basically tells him that he has 90 minutes to live. And so it follows his journey as he's trying to kind of run around and trying to figure out like what he's doing. He's just like, I need to ride my wife one more time. I need to meet up with all my friends. I need to, do all these mad things. And on the surface, yeah, it's just a very kind of darkly funny Robin Williams film. But again, I tend to overanalyze the shit out of it. And there's little kind of things that are said in the movie about like his relationship with his wife, his relationship with his kids. And it's very clear to see that this man has struggled in different ways with his mental health due to, I don't want to spoil too many things, but like he's had stuff happen in his life where he would obviously be affected and obviously affect his mental health. And his way of dealing with all that is anger. He has a very powerful, poignant monologue at one point in the movie. And again, you might just think, oh, it's just kind of a throwaway and it's sad, but it's kind of funny because he's so angry. But the words hit deeper and hit harder if you kind of view him as this man who's gone through a lot of shit and hasn't necessarily had the time or the opportunity to actually work on his mental health and the way that he deals with things. He's always dealt with things with anger, and that's just gotten worse and worse and worse over the years because no one has told him that there's other options or there's other ways of dealing with it. Also, very off topic but still slightly on topic, Angriest Man in Brooklyn was one of the first DVDs I bought when I started my DVD collection, which is now in and around 970 something DVDs. So just, I don't know what you can do with that information. There you go, it's just a fun fact. But either way, I'll say this to you about all movies. Yes, you can watch movies and you can see what there is just there at face value, but again, if there's any slight bit of emotion in the film, you can try and attribute that to either stuff in your own life or be like, okay, well maybe this person has gone through mental health and maybe it's something that you resonate with because you understand it yourself, or maybe it's something that like, okay, I would never deal with it that way, but this person has. That for me is the beauty of film, that fair enough, I sat down to watch a comedy with Robin Williams, but I took away from it a lot more mental health knowledge than I went into it with. Joys of cinema, lads. You know, if you sit down and just want to watch a movie, you just want to watch a movie, work away. But if you sit down and view it as almost a way of studying people and studying the mind, then, you know, that opens a whole load of doors, and you would actually be very surprised how many movies touch on things, and especially movies that you sit down to watch that you don't think you'll get anything out of. There you go. That was my movie of the week with a massive fucking tangent, but that's the joy of this podcast, lads. Angriest Man in Brooklyn, I highly recommend it for no other reason other than the fact that you get to see the marvellous Robin Williams at work. So lads, how do we deal with anger? We've already discussed how I dealt with anger in the past. Long story short, I did not deal with it well. I punched shit that I should not be punching because I was letting the anger get the best of me. So say you're in the throes of depression. You've been down for a while. Everything is pissing you off. Even the smallest things, down to the way that your fucking, I don't know, your brother eats his breakfast, or the way that your mother asks, how are you? Whatever it might be, you feel yourself boiling over. And I know it sounds stupid and I know it sounds pretty obvious. First thing, just stop and think. Just actually take 10 seconds and think, okay, am I actually annoyed at this, or am I annoyed because of the fact that I'm just in bad form at the moment? And yes, for purposes of this podcast, I am referring to depression as being in bad form, because you can be in bad form with depression. Stop and just think, okay, is this actually pissing me off? Like, is this something that really, really deserves my anger, or am I just a bit touchy at the moment because I have a lot going on in my head and the smallest things in the world are pissing me off? If it's the case that it's the smallest things in the world that are pissing you off, then you just take a deep breath, walk away from the situation. It is better to walk away and tell the person that you just, look, I just can't talk about this right now, I can't do this right now, and walk away for 5-10 minutes and then come back and try and talk about it as best you can. Because lads, when I say all the time that you need to talk about what's going on, I don't just mean talk about the sadness, talk about the anger, talk about the fact that whatever that person has done has fucking got under your skin. Just explain it to them. Just honesty is the way forward in relation to fucking everything. If your boss is seriously getting on your tits, tell him what's the worst that'll happen. They'll fucking fire you. Fine, because then you don't have to work for the person that's on getting on your fucking tits anymore. So it's not really the end of the world, is it? Don't be afraid to be honest. Now, if it's a case that that person genuinely is just pissing you off and you want to fucking lay into them and tear out their hair or whatever, that's still, it's not the best way of dealing with it. You can talk to them in a calm and collected way and still get your point across of how annoyed and pissed off you are. But again, we're not talking about that. I'm talking to you about ways that you can avoid boiling over. One thing that really works for me, and this works if it's a case of when I'm really angry and I think I'm going to lose my temper, it works when I'm really low, it works when I'm kind of start to spiral, it works when I feel like I'm on the verge of having a panic attack. But for the most part, we have 5 senses. You have sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch. You have a lot going on. You're not happy in yourself, you're not happy in your position in life, you're thinking about it, you're in your room, you're getting more and more pissed off, you feel like you're about to blow, you hear that, like the clock ticking, you hear that, like that little whistle going, and it's boiling up and it's going. Just try and catch it just for 2 seconds, right? Catch like where you are in that situation, catch it, like you know where you are, you know what's gonna come, and just say, right, quickly, 5 things around me I can touch, 4 things I can hear, 3 things I can see, 2 things I can taste, 1 thing I can smell, or whatever way around you want to do it. Okay? If you get the 5 of those done really fast, you go again, you change up the order. 5 things I can taste right now. If you're in your bedroom, it might be a bit difficult, but by the time you've done that 3 or 4 times, you'll have not completely forgotten about, but you have taken yourself out of that dangerous situation where you're starting to boil over. You'll have separated yourself from that, and you might be able to see it more clearly. And again, if you stop and you feel like you're boiling over again, do the same thing. There's countless numbers of different ways you can do it. Even again, by struggling to think about, okay, what did I do the last time? 5 things I can smell, 4 things I can taste. Okay, I did that the last time. What am I doing now? You've completely distracted yourself, and that genuinely does work for me. Now again, there has been times where I've been so annoyed that I'd say, 5 things I can smell. The candle, my clean bed sheets. Fuck this, I can't fucking smell anything. It's fucking stupid. Again, there's always a risk of these things. I'm not perfect, lads. I'm only passing on information of stuff that has worked for me. It might not always work for you. That's fine. But I'd always try it. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. We don't know, but since I've started doing those 2 things, I haven't punched a wall. I have not punched a wall in over a year. Now, most people would be able to say that they haven't punched a wall in fucking 20 years or all their life, because, not everyone found a strange coping mechanism in punching a wall, but I did. So I'm proud of the fact that I haven't punched a wall in over a year, and you can get to a point where you haven't lost your temper in over 6 months or over 6 days. Really depends on your situation. The last thing that I have done many times, and you're gonna think, okay, Horse has lost the plot. Now, I haven't done it in a long time. I haven't done it since I moved back out closer to home. This was more when I was living away, where not a lot of people around knew me, because obviously I was living in the city, and there's way more people in the city than there is out in the country, and there's a lot less chance of someone knowing you. The nearer I lived, I could kind of walk, and I could basically walk down a footpath and then go off the footpath and end up in this kind of forest. And I would walk away down into the forest for a good 10-15 minutes, so that I was far enough away from anyone around. Sometimes I'd throw on some music, sometimes I'd just kind of sit there. I might talk out loud, I might just go over things in my brain, and then I would clench my 2 hands together as hard as I could. I'd lean my head back and I would scream. Just scream. And again, I know you're gonna think that I sound fucking nuts, but it works. It was a way of me getting that frustration out, because that's more than anything what you need. If you can't kind of manage to calm yourself and get yourself back down to a level where you're okay, you have to get that frustration out, because it stays inside you and it boils and boils and boils, and then, like I said, you end up taking it out on someone who does not deserve it. So I've definitely done that at least 4, if not 5, 6 times. Just gone out into the forest and screamed. And to be honest, it's kind of fun. Like I said, I definitely probably couldn't do it now, because there's nowhere really secluded enough that I can get to, and I just feel like someone I know would somehow see me doing it, or hear me doing it, or the guards would be called. Now, to be fair, the fact that the guards weren't called in the first place when I did it, when I was living in the city, is still probably slightly concerning, but it's therapeutic. It genuinely is. Just screaming, just letting it all out. Go off anywhere. Go to the beach, go to the fucking pier, go to, I don't know where you're from or where you live or what's around you. Go out into the backyard, and if your parents ask what are you doing, just say, I'm just getting out my frustrations. It's just something that has to be done, And the last, I suppose, I did say that was the last thing, but just a little sideline. Another thing that genuinely works, especially if you're like me and you like rock music, you like heavy metal, just put on some heavy metal music and dance around like there's nobody fucking watching you. Get into your room, jump up top of the bed, shake your arse, fucking headbang, fucking throw your fists around, kick, whatever the fuck it is. Get that frustration out. The heavier and louder the music, the better. I have a song in particular that I listen to. It's by a band called Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes. It's called I Hate You, and it's perfect. It's I don't think I can say the words on the podcast. I probably can, but I probably shouldn't. It's got one of the very bad words in it. It's got the C word in it. But it's great, and it's genuinely a song that has helped me a lot getting my frustrations out. So look, there's just a couple of coping mechanisms. Whether it's the listening to music, just stopping for a second and taking those 10 seconds to think, okay, am I actually pissed off, or am I pissed off because I'm in bad form? Working with the 5 senses. 5 things I can touch, 4 things I can see, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, 1 thing I can taste. Or just get out there and scream. Just have a good old scream, because you'll let yourself have a cry. If you're upset, you will go into your room, you'll try and sad music, you'll try on a sad movie, and you'll cry. That is a coping mechanism for sadness. Why is there no coping mechanism for anger? Why is it not seen as acceptable to go out and just have a scream? No, I'm not saying go out and scream in someone's face. Obviously, go out by yourself and just scream out in your yard or scream somewhere. It's better than screaming into a pillow, because if you scream into a pillow, you're stopping yourself, and then subconsciously it's like you're not allowing yourself to actually feel what you're feeling. Just go out into a field, go out into the yard, go off down to the beach and just start screaming. Just do it. And if anyone questions you, just say, I'm just working through some stuff. That's all you have to say. People probably won't question you anyway, because they'll probably be afraid of the random screaming person in their general vicinity. Now lads, you're probably wondering, where's James this week? Unfortunately, I have some news about James. He's sitting right here beside me. His beard is in need of a trimming, and he's some man for the older woman. It's time for Jambon's Corner.
Thank you very much, Owen. It's great to be here once again for Jambon's Corner. This week is quite a simple one. So I want you to imagine that you're hungover. You wake up and it's 10 o'clock of a Sunday morning. Throughout the day, you have a number of choices to make. The first one is when you go to the local Centra. Other shops are available. You go in and you have to pick one item from the deli, a drink from the fridge, a bag of crisps, and a sweet treat. Later on that evening, you decide, I'm still hungover to bits. I'm going to order a takeaway. 1 main, 1 side, 1 drink, 1 sauce. Those are your choices, and I'd love to hear what they are.
Right, firstly, how bad was the night out before? Like, how bad is the wallet? Like, did I just get paid? Or, like, am I waiting to get paid? Or does money factor into it?
Money doesn't factor into this. So the night out that you had was, you had your first pint at 8:30, you went home at 2:30. You had a burger and chip at about 2 o'clock, and you had, I would say, 6 pints and we'll say 3 Captain Morgans, and then you did the dog and got 2 Jaeger bombs. So that's where you're at with this hangover.
Right. Well, firstly, you made a slight mistake by saying that other shops are available. They're not. You go to Centra. That is it. Definitely getting a chicken fillet roll. See, it really depends on how bad the stomach is, or how bad the head is. Depends on what fillings I'm getting. Like, either way, I'm getting mayo, I'm getting lettuce, I'm getting cheese. But sometimes I might throw in an old bit of coleslaw, maybe a bit of stuffing. You know, just to hammer home that I hate myself.
Is it plain or spicy on? Let's start with the basics.
If I'm hungover, it's plain, because I don't want to.
You can't deal with it otherwise.
I can't deal with it, basically. Yeah, it's just I can't be having that.
Right. Okay. So we have that as your deli item. So the next 3 things you have to pick are a drink from the fridge, a bag of crisps, and sweet treat.
No, I will always get a coffee. Is this allowed? Like, I always get a coffee as well as a cold drink when I'm hungover.
I'll allow it.
You'll allow it. Okay, so I'm getting a cappuccino, 2 sugars.
Can I just say that's probably not a normal choice for people when they're hungover inside the shop, is to get a coffee. Am I in the minority there that thinks that's weird?
You think that I'm in the minority? Message James. No, don't. He will get very mad. I don't care. I get a coffee. I always get a coffee. And when I go to Centra, I get a coffee, regardless of what I go in for. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter if I'm going in for the dinner, if I'm going in for the breakfast, if I'm just going in for a vape. Doesn't matter. Going in for a poo. Is that what you were thinking?
Well, and thanks for being frank and honest with me.
Hey! Cold drink, bottle of Coke. Especially with a hangover. It just... I don't even know does it actually help, but I've convinced myself that it does help. So, get that. Potatoes, or crisps, or whatever it is you said. Kyo's, cheese and onion, the crinkle cut ones. Because they are the best crisp. And, you can hate me all you want, but I'm not here to make friends, lads. I'm here to spit facts. And then, see, this is the thing, I wouldn't normally go for a sweet treat.
Right, if you had to, I'm talking an old bar of chocolate or an old bag of jellies or something. What? Like, you don't have to eat them straight away when you go home?
Do bakery items count as a sweet treat?
No.
I was going to say I'd get one of those boxes of, like, you get the 9 small little donuts. covered in the sugar. Ones you can just go home. And fair enough, I just made a sound, but everyone listening knows what I just did. Home.
Right, fair enough. Look, if that's what you're going to go for, that's what you're going to go for. I can't change your mind.
Look, you can ask the judges.
Judges, they've told me to fuck off.
That's fair enough.
Yeah, okay.
Nah, look, in that case, so I'd probably just go for no plain dairy milk. For the simple fact that plain dairy milk and cheese and onion potatoes just go together. Again, bite me on this if you want. I know what I'm about. I go home then, eat the food, have a cry, watch a movie, get to the evening time then, and I'm having Chinese or any takeaway.
So I said takeaway. So one main, one side, one drink, one sauce. What are you getting?
I'm getting a Chinese.
Alright, okay.
So when you say main now, is that just like my normal Chinese order? I get chicken curry, bag of chips, egg fried rice, either barbecue spare ribs or the salt and pepper ribs, depends on my farm, and then I might get an extra tub of curry.
Yeah, see, I would consider the curry and rice to be your main, the chips to be your side, and the curry sauce is your sauce. Ribs aren't going to factor in here, I'm afraid. I can't allow it.
Can't allow too much.
Yeah.
Look, I'll manage without the ribs, but I get the prawn crackers because they come free.
That's fair.
Yeah. So then I put it all on the plate and I scoop it all into the prawn crackers and I stuff my face and then I feel even more shit and cry more. And then I go to bed. Oh, I have a shower, then I go to bed. That's my hangover day.
Owen, thank you very much for being honest and candid here today in Jambon's Corner. I look forward to returning once again in 2 weeks' time with another stupid question.
So normally before we finish up we have our segment Straight from the Horse's Mouth where we hear from ye. But just for this week we're gonna skip that because I want you to hear something from me. Now I know that the whole podcast is basically me talking, but this part is special. It's different. It's something that I feel like I have to tell you and have to talk to you about. So I hope you'll just bear with me and I hope you can take something from it. So I want to go back to a year ago. I was in the worst state of depression that I have ever been in. I was so low, I was so lonely, I was so angry, I was sad all the time. It wasn't the first time I'd been depressed, but it was the worst. And I had this thought, I had this notion constantly flying around in my head of how many more times is this going to happen? How many more times am I going to be depressed and then get better? And then get depressed again, and then get better, and then get depressed again, and then get better. And I was tired. I was so tired of constantly fighting, of having 3-4 months of depression and then 1.5 months of feeling good and feeling happy and feeling great, and then rinse and repeat the same cycle over and over and over for as long as I can remember, at least the last 10 years, if not longer. And I was sick of it. I was so sick of it. I felt like such a failure. I felt like a fraud. I'm someone who talks very openly about mental health, and I felt like all this pressure was on me to be 100% all the time, because how can people listen to me talk about mental health if I'm not okay? And there was other things going on as well. You know, I just wasn't happy. Like, other stuff was going on personally, but they're not to blame. No one is to blame. Depression is just one of those things. It's the same as a common cold. Really, it really is, because it'll affect everyone. You know, everyone will always have a cold every now and again. Everyone's going to have a bit of depression every now and again. But unfortunately, the way I had been coping with it, well, I wasn't really coping at all. That was the problem. Every time I went to counselling, I was getting a quick fix. I would talk about the problems that were going on at the time, and then when I felt like I had resolutions to those problems, I was like, oh great, and then that's why I'd feel okay for like a month and a half, 2 months maybe. But I wasn't getting down to the root of the problem, and that's why those depressive tendencies would come back. And so one night, 10th of April last year, it had all gotten too much, and I decided and I attempted to end my own life. And I'm very, very glad that I didn't. I'm very glad that I'm here and I'm able to tell you this and tell you this story. Like the few people that I have told, the question I get asked the most is, what stopped you? I don't know is the very simple answer. I do not know. I have no idea. But I did. And I picked up the phone and I rang Pieta House, because I didn't feel like at the time I could ring a family member. I didn't feel like I could just walk back out to my housemates and say, oh, guess what I just nearly did. So I rang Pieta House, and Pieta House lads are phenomenal. They do amazing work. through that phone call, I was able to get counselling through Pieta House, specifically on dealing with suicidal ideation, because it's something I have struggled with for a long time, was this idea of wanting to be gone, and if I was gone and I wasn't here, I wouldn't have this pain anymore. I wouldn't be going through all of this again and again and again. As much as I talk about mental health, this is still something that is quite difficult for me to talk about, because even though I've done all the work and I am so much better now, I'm nowhere near the person I was this time last year. I look back, I don't even recognise that person, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. And I look at how far I've come in the last year, and this video is not, me talking about this is not, it's not a way of me saying, oh, look at me, look how great I am. And it's also not oh, look at me, look at how bad I was, oh, God help us. It's neither of those things. It's me owning up that I talk about mental health, and I can't continue to talk about mental health unless I'm honest with you too. I can't preach honesty if I'm not honest with you. This part in particular is for anyone who is going through a tough time at the moment and is in a similar situation to where I was. It's not the answer, lads. It's not. You have so much more to offer the world. It's like, when you're there, you can't comprehend. You feel like you're the smallest and most worthless person, and you're not. No one is. If I had followed through in the last year, I wouldn't have got to see some of the most amazing gigs that I've ever been to, both on a large scale and just small intimate gigs. I wouldn't have made new friends. This podcast wouldn't be here. These videos, whatever content I create, they wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have my little studio that I'm working in now, because I now rent my own house. I would have missed my uncle's wedding, which was one of the best nights of my life. I danced my arse off. No, I also drank my arse off, but that's besides the point. I wouldn't have my dog. I have a little 7-month-old puppy. I love her to bits. She's fucking lunatic. I wouldn't have her, or she wouldn't have me, and I wouldn't have met the most amazing woman that, apart from everything else, makes me laugh every single day. All the things I just mentioned have happened in the last year, when a year ago I couldn't see a way out. All I'm asking and all I'm saying to you, lad, is hold in there. Hold on. Grab onto something. Anything at all. Talk to someone. Whether it's Pieta House, whether it's counsellor, whether it's a friend, whether it's family, whoever. Talk to someone, because I can assure you, you are not alone. As a country, one of the things, if not the best thing that we do, is talk. There is literally a saying, that person would talk for Ireland. Anyone at all. Start journaling. Start writing songs. Start going for walks. Start getting out there. Just start making small changes, because that's all I did. I started talking. I started making the small changes. Am I 100% better now? No. I still have the bad days. I still have depressive moments. Is my life 100 times better now? No. It's a lot better, but there's still a lot of shit. Everything's fucking expensive. Everyone is out to fucking get each other in the world at the moment. It just seems like there's a lot of hate and anger in the world, and I understand that. But yet, I don't want to be anywhere else other than where I am right now. And yes, I will pat myself on the back. I have done so much work on myself in the last year, and it's not necessarily work you can see from the outside, but on the inside, I'm completely different. My biggest thing, and I know I have said it a lot, but this is the context of why I say it. I used to want to be happy all the time, and happiness is way too broad, and it was basically my way of setting myself up to fail, because I never believed in myself. I knew if I strived for happiness that I'd never get there, and then that was another excuse for me to beat myself up. And now I strive for consistent contentment. If I can get up in the morning, go to work, come home, do my few bits and go to bed, and before I go to bed I can say, I did a good job today, I'm happy in what I did today, I'm content in what I did today, I should say. Following day, repeat. Following day. There's no point in thinking a week, 2 weeks, a month down the line. Focus on tomorrow. Focus on today, tomorrow. That's all you can do. This has shown me that life can be short, and I very nearly cut mine short. I'm not taking life for granted anymore. Lads, you're never, ever alone. You're never, the only person going through what you're going. There are hundreds of people out there who understand. You never need to think that your life is so pointless and so worthless that you need to end it. You could make such a difference in the world, and you don't know. You have no idea what you're going to do in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. But you owe it to yourself to be there to see what happens. Like I said, lads, the main reason why I spoke about it is because I preach honesty, and I can't exactly preach honesty if I'm not honest with you. More than anything, the reason why I tell my story is to help people realize that they're not alone, and that there are answers and there's ways of getting help. I'm so fucking proud of how far I've come, and I'm so proud of the fact that I have this podcast, that I have my TikTok, that I have the following that I have, that I know in some small way that I'm making an impact. And I will continue to do that for as long as you let me, or as long as TikTok is a thing before they delete it or whatever is going to happen with it. So lads, I'll be back in 2 weeks' time with all the regular features. So for the next 2 weeks, like I always say, take some time for yourself, be kind to yourself, and most importantly, mind yourselves. If you're struggling with suicidal thoughts, please call Pieta House for free on 1800 247 247. If you're looking for counsellors in your area, please log on to mymind.org.